Hey, this is Making It Work. I'm Jimmy. If you haven't been here before, I appreciate you guys tuning in today. This video is going to be about wrenches. I've got a bunch of wrenches, all different kinds, different brands, different sizes and shapes. Some of them cheap, some of them expensive. I want to do a little comparison about the feel, the grip on a bolt or nut, and how you can compare the value as far as the price versus the quality and the possible durability of the wrench. The durability part will be speculation, but I'm just mostly interested in the feel and how all of that comes together with what you pay for your expectations and what you can accomplish with a cheap wrench versus an expensive wrench. So I appreciate you guys tuning in this video. Let's go ahead and get into it. Alright guys, some of these wrenches I wanted to go over with you guys. The cheaper ones versus the more expensive ones, the feel in your hand. This is a sky wrench, so to get an idea how accurate this is, although this isn't the best method to measure, a caliper is, not a digital micrometer, but we'll still get a good idea from wrench to wrench. 0.712, about 0.714. Feel in your hand, it's 0.217, so about almost a quarter of an inch, about 30 thousandths short of a quarter of an inch. And the width, 0.616. Now keep in mind this is a $16 wrench, so sky wrench, you know, you're gonna get a really cheap wrench like this so that you can modify it or do whatever you need to do with it. It's basically a sacrificial wrench for when you buy a $16 set of wrenches as a professional. It's basically because you probably want to make something that you can't buy. So especially in the day, back in the day, it's what we used to do all the time. Not like nowadays where there's all kinds of special wrench sets available. What else we got here? Oh, that sucks. I brought the Huskies, but that drops to 17. We'll go with the Max. I think this was called a Max Force or a Max Torque. I just had these in my video last week. 0.716, 0.714. It's about the same as far as the open end feel. Snap-on flank drive. The snap-on flank drive is slightly larger opening at 0.720. You guys can see. Can you guys see that? Maybe I should be showing you guys the digital micrometer on screen. It's about 722 in the opening on the snap-on flank drive. The max torque, it's about 715. The GearWrench 18, see where that's at. 715, 716, about 715. This is a Black Hawk 18. The opening of this one is 715. This is an early Blue Point 18, and the early Blue Point about 715. So most of these are coming in right around 715. Out of my 18mm wrenches, they're pretty similar. The only one that had a larger opening was the flank drive, probably because of the design with the teeth and the way it's made to grip around the sides of the bolt if the bolt has been slightly boogered up or nut. So I'm wondering if maybe the opening's larger slightly because of that. I'm getting slightly different measurements now. This isn't a perfect method, but get a pretty good idea. 719. So the Sky 715. They're pretty close, but I'm assuming because of the flank drive, it's meant to be slightly looser so that it's going to grab a different part of the nut than the other wrench. The feel in your hand, you know, like I said, the Sky is roughly 613, and the thickness, the feel in your hand is 0.215. The max torque, .225, a little beefier. And the sideways measurement is 0.592, so it's slightly narrower than the Sky. The snap-on wrench, as far as feel in your hands, 0.645, 646, and the thickness, 0.218. So the Sky is actually a little bit thicker. The max torque's quite a bit, oh yeah, 226, quite a bit thicker. The snap-on flank drive, 26, 216, 217. You guys can see that, I guess. That's the snap-on 18. The GearWrench 18. You do feel a little bit more of a corner. .216, 212. That's where the gear wrench is. And the thickness, the width is .635. Snap-on, a little bit wider, 209, 210. Gear wrench, 207, 208. So they're pretty close. So it's within about five or 6 thousandths as far as the thickness goes. The Blackhawk feels like the thickest in your hand of all. That's about, and you can see in the measurement, .235, and the width .614. Turn you guys a little this way. And then when you go to the Blue Point, 18 millimeter, .62, .619, .620, thickness .214 of an inch. Can you guys see that? I go to the long gear wrench, 18 millimeter. The long gear wrench 18, .718 is what I'm getting. And then thickness wise, .230, .234, 232. So it's around 233, 232. Mountain. Let's try the mountain wrench out. Thickness .210, and the width .61. So basically, they're all really close. I mean, you're talking thousandths of an inch. From the cheapest wrench you can buy, the Sky. I always forget which way the camera goes backwards. It always goes backwards to me. The Sky at .214 thickness. The Max Torque, .228, 229. The Snap-on, .214. The gear wrench, .208. The Blackhawk, .233. And the early Blue Point, .214, 215. Let's call it .214. Then we go to this gear wrench long reach. .235. So you can see they're all pretty close as far as the feel in your hands, the thickness of the wrenches. They're not too far off. And then the opening of the wrench, .713, .715, the Snap-on, .719, the gear wrench, .715, the Blackhawk, .714, early Blue Point, .715, and this is a box, so I'm not going to measure the box on those. They're all pretty similar. I mean, the cheapest wrench to the most expensive. I mean, obviously durability is going to vary. The Snap-on's probably going to win that contest. It does start out slightly larger, but you know, I've had good luck with Snap-on wrenches. Those are my go-to hand tools, is Snap-on wrenches. But I buy cheap wrenches just because I can use them for whatever I need to do without worrying about busting them or beating them or heating them or bending them or whatever I want to do with them. Let's talk about feel on the bolts. I'm not sure if this is an 18 or a 17. Yeah, this is an 18. Got an 18 millimeter camber bolt here, strut alignment bolt to reset camber on a strut. But the Sky, you can see the very slight amount of play to rock it back and forth in the cheap wrench. The Max Torque actually feels like it has slightly more play. This wrench is supposedly designed to bite on all the corners at the same time. That's why it's got the angle cut in it, so you can use it supposedly to help turn bolts and nuts. Feels a tiny bit looser, but when you push it down into the wrench, it feels pretty good in there. Snap-on. got pretty good wiggle. I mean, it definitely feels pretty loose in there. I think that's because it's a flank drive. It's designed to catch edges of the nut and to turn the nut whether it's all the way on or not. Corners, the leading edge is kind of rounded quite a bit more. Definitely looser in that wrench. The GearWrench. It's got quite a good bite on it actually. It feels, oh there it is, okay. Got a little bit of play in it, but not a ton. Feels similar to all of them. The snap-on's a little bit looser. The Blackhawk's pretty snug. I mean, that thing, this wrench has seen some use too, but not a ton. It has seen some use. It's not new by any means. It's definitely got a little bit of wiggle. Not scientific, I know, but we're just going by feel. You know, I just want to compare all these different brands and the feel versus what you pay and what you feel on a bolt or nut. You go to the boxes, you can see quite a bit of play in there. That's a 12-point box, so the bolt will dance quite a bit in that. Whew, it's getting a little warm in here. Mountain, that was a GearWrench, by the way. The mountain wrench, you can see the mechanism moving around in the wrench, but the bolt itself feels pretty snug in here. It's got a little bit of play, just a little bit of play in it. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but I mean, it's literally just a few thousandths of play. It's got more play in the mechanism for the wrench than it does on the head of the bolt. Let's go to a 13 millimeter. That's a 13 millimeter, 8.8. You know, it's metric. That's a 13 millimeter in the flank drive. It shows you how much play is in it. Not too bad. Like I said, these flank drives are kind of designed to be a little sloppier like that. Let's grab the, I've got a Husky 13 millimeter. You can compare that. Kind of similar to the flank drive, maybe just a hair looser, I would say. Let's do them back to back. Snap-on and Husky. Oh yeah, the Snap-on's got more play. You can see the play in the Husky and the play in the Snap-on. Something inherent to the flank drive design. It's got to be designed that way. If I go to the GearWrench now, we don't need the Snap-on one. We'll compare the Sky and the Husky. Two inexpensive wrenches. I'd say the Husky's inexpensive and the Sky's cheap. Quite a bit of play, nothing terrible. The Sky is actually snugger than the Husky. It's pretty close. I mean, that's too close to call, although it seems to me like the Sky is a little snugger than the Husky is, which is kind of odd. I didn't expect that. Let's go to the Mountain. It's a Max Torque, this is called. I keep calling them Mountain. It's a Max Torque. The finish on these is really nice. I'm kind of impressed with the finish on these Max Torque wrenches. I think these are the $44.99 or $49.99 wrenches. I mean, that's pretty nice. That Max Torque wrench is pretty nice. I mean, it's just got a little bit of play like you'd expect when you're grabbing a bolt to turn it. Just enough that you're not, you know, struggling. If they're too tight, then you're not going to get it on the bolt, especially if the bolt's hot, because the tolerance changes between cold and hot. That's why wrench manufacturers have to leave you a little wiggle room. It's never going to be snug, because when the bolt's hot, it won't go on. So, let's see here. What other brands do I have? That's about it for the 13 millimeter. But you guys can see that there's quite a bit of difference. The flank drives are the sloppiest on the bolts, on the head of the bolts. But I think that's by design. The flank drives are designed to take damaged nuts and bolts out, not just ones that are in good condition. So they're going to be a little sloppier on the ones that are in good condition. But while I'm doing this video, we have some really cool wrenches over here I wanted to show you guys. Paul and Joe were digging around in their wrench collection for me. So I wanted to, let me look at you guys. Paul and Joe knew I was going to make this video about wrenches tonight. So they dug some wrenches out of their box that I thought you guys might like to take a look at. Some of the inexpensive wrenches that they've bent and modified over the years. And one of them, Paul had, he actually ground a snap-on wrench down so he can get to something. I think it said something about a Cadillac water pump or something like that. I forget what he said it was for, but I'll have him mention it in the comments. But let me bust out some of the weird wrenches, some of the cheap ones, the off-brands that you may have not seen too often or at all. I thought they were pretty interesting, so I was going to make this video is just about the way the wrenches feel on the bolts and nuts and in your hands. And honestly, they all feel pretty good to me. Some people have said comments about some of the wrenches cutting into their hands, but I'm not really feeling that because, I mean, like, especially with a long handled wrench like the Mountain, you know, you're not, when you're turning a long wrench and you got it on a bolt that's pretty tight, you're not grabbing it up here, I would assume, right? You're going to grab it down. I grab it on the shank of the wrench. I'm using this wrench for my grip, especially if something's really tight that I need a long reach wrench. You wouldn't grab a long reach wrench in the middle, so it shouldn't be cutting into your hand. So I'm kind of trying to figure that out. But let me grab those other wrenches and they're on the other bench. So I'm gonna grab the other wrenches and show you guys. These are out of Joe's wrench collection. This is one of the interesting things you can do. This is a Wright. This wrench is a Wright, and Joe said, well, you know, I need to make it fit something that I don't have. So it's either for a distributor, setting timing, something like that. It says forged alloy, 15 millimeter. USA. It's made by Wright Tools, USA. And Joe said, you know what, I need to bend this to fit something. So that's what he did. Joe's CW20 Mac. This is a pretty old Mac tool. 5/8, so should fit on this 5/8 bolt. Actually fits pretty good. And this wrench is probably 25 years old, I would guess. I'm not really sure. But maybe Joe would know. I wish he was here, I could ask him. USA made, Mac 5/8. Feels pretty nice on the bolt, actually. Although it's really short. If you had to turn something, break something loose that was really tight, you'd have a hard time with that. This one here is a Wright as well. The chrome is just destroyed on it from where he heated it and bent it. He needed to get a job done. He took his wrench and he bent it. That's how you got stuff done back in the day when we were younger, huh? 14. I don't have a 14 millimeter bolt up here to see how this one feels. This one here is also a Mac, 11/16. I wonder if I have an 11/16 up here. These are metric, but yeah, the 17 millimeter is loose in an 11/16, but that is really short for an 11/16 wrench. I mean, were guys much stronger back in the day? I'm not sure, but this seems exceptionally short for an 11/16 wrench. Just a little bit under 1/4 inch, and it's like 6.5 inches, 7 inches long. Now, what would you need to bend a wrench for like this? I thought that was pretty interesting. It's a 12 millimeter on one end, 13 millimeter on the other, and it says Secore, S-E-C-O-R-E. Never heard of it. You guys tell what that is? But he bent the shit out of it. He's like, I need to get a job done. So that wrench paid the price. Some of Paul's interesting wrenches were this SK. He broke one side of it while he was using it, and he can't get it warranted. He hasn't been able to send it to SK. He didn't take the time to send it to SK, or there isn't an SK tool distributor. But he's like, well, I want to use the 16 millimeter end for fuel lines and stuff, you know, 5/8 and 16 millimeter. So he put duct tape on it so he could still use this wrench instead of throwing it away. Pretty resourceful. Craftsman 5/8. He wanted me to check the fit on the Craftsman 5/8 while I was doing this, and it actually fits pretty good. It's about average with most of those wrenches over there. This is an early Craftsman wrench. One of the things Paul commented was how sharp this edge is here. On your fingers, this edge is pretty sharp. Although your hand is, like I said on the other wrench, your hand's pushing on that part of the wrench. But if you're grabbing it, you know, this is pretty sharp. It's surprisingly sharp on that edge. If you can see that, I get it in the light just right. But I mean, it's pretty Craftsman wrench, pretty sharp. What else? This one's made in Germany. Alloy steel, Stahlwheel, Stabil. This is a 10 and 12 millimeter. It's a nice, this wrench has a nice feel to it. It's cut in for your thumb and all that. Pretty thick. You can see how thick this wrench is where you're going to go around the bolt. There's a lot of meat there for a 12 millimeter. The 10 doesn't look quite as aggressive as far as how meaty it is. It's good though. It's got some meat. Must be a pretty sturdy wrench, I'm sure. Another Craftsman wrench, 14 millimeter. It's got the same sharpness there, so they're doing that sharpness for grip, I guess. But man, it's pretty sharp. It's not as bad as the sheet metal in most dashboards, but it's pretty sharp. His snap-on 16 6-point. Thought that was pretty interesting. That's a 5/8. Yeah, I don't have a 16 nut out here to show you guys the fit on that, but oh, here's a 5/8. This is a snap-on. Oh, that'll be a good comparison. In here somewhere. Didn't disappear. There it is. Oh, 5/8. Oh, that's why I don't have a 5/8. They don't make the they don't make the 5/8 in a flank drive. That's pretty good. The regular snap-on 5/8 non-flank drive definitely fits snug on that bolt. So that flank drive design is what's causing it to be a little sloppy on those other bolts, on those other wrenches. I mean, that feels pretty good. That's nice. Paul's wrench. And then he showed me one. I was kind of surprised. This is the snap-on wrench that he ground down. I mean, I don't know if you guys, you grind the wrench down like this. See what he did there? He actually ground that wrench down to about half its normal thickness. So we'll see how much of a difference he made grinding that thing down. Let's assume that most of the snap-on wrenches are going to be somewhere around there, 0.398. Paul needed to get a job done. Got that thing on the bench grinder, and he's got it down to 0.193. You know, it got the job done. I mean, there was a time when you didn't have, 10 or 12 different designs of wrenches to use to get in tight spots and figure things out. So you would grind your tools, but honestly, I probably wouldn't have ground my 15 down. I would have got a 15 like this Sky wrench, and I'd have ground the heck out of it, and not felt bad about it at all, because that wrench is about $1.50. Because this whole set of wrenches was $16, including the shipping. So technically, it was more than that. There's one missing. This set's bigger than this. Is there a wrench missing? Yeah, here it is. It only goes up to 18, there's no 19. But this whole set of wrenches was $16 and change. And they're not terrible. I mean, these are real stubby. You're not going to get a lot of torque with that, but you'll be able to use these in a tight spot. They're going to be fine. I mean, there's plenty of meat on that wrench. This little Sky wrench, the finish isn't bad. I showed you the fit on the bolts. It's not terrible. I'm sure they're going to wear out, but at $16, buy 2 sets. You wear one out, you got another one handed. Anyway, let me show you guys some of my unusual wrench. Alright. That's a Husky GearWrench. GearWrench is a brand, right? Not the design. It's a wrench that gears. I guess this would be called a ratcheting wrench. But Husky makes ratcheting wrenches too. And I've used this wrench quite a bit. You can see it's got some wear and tear on it. I put a little transmission fluid in there once in a while to keep it from rusting. And it actually makes them last a little bit longer if you guys do that. Put some transmission fluid in some of these gear wrenches. You can use motor oil too, but I like transmission fluid because it's mineral based. It works pretty good. Welding, 11/16 and 5/8. This Welding wrench, I believe I got from my father-in-law's stash when he passed away. I got a lot of his tools. Everyone thought I should have them, which was pretty nice. But I'm just amazed. I mean, this is a Welding USA made wrench, 5/8 and 11/16. Could you imagine back in the day breaking the, I mean, this thing's, what do you want that? I mean, it's tiny. For a 5/8 wrench, it's a little sloppy on the bolt, not too terrible. I mean, an 11/16 bolt is pretty big, and you're supposed to break it loose with this little wrench. It's kind of amazing back then how they did things so differently. But anyone heard of Sketa Tools? S-C-E-T-A? I hope I'm pronouncing it right. It's either Sketa or Sketa, but it's probably Sketa, S-C-E-T-A. 13 and 15. This looks like it's got a nice finish on it. The chrome's not super thin like it is on some that I see. 13mm box. Kind of sloppy. Not terrible, but that's one of the more sloppy. That's nowhere near as snug as the gear wrench is. It's almost like the mechanism. And then I got a Zomax. Anyone heard of Zomax wrenches? This is a Zomax made in India. It's a little wrench. 3/8 on both ends, box and open end. Super cheaply made. It looks like it basically almost looks like someone took it out of a cast and then finished machining it by hand. It's really pretty rough. Made in India. A friend of mine that watched one of my videos, when I mentioned India making tools, he said, India doesn't make tools. So I dug that out just to go, ha ha. This one here is a Proto, 9/16. Box end, open end. It's rough on the edges, and I'm not sure why. Like they chrome plated in the middle, but not on the edges. And my guess would be for traction. When your hands are a little greasy or dirty, you get more friction on the wrench for loosening bolts. This is a USA made Proto Professional 9/16 wrench. Pretty old little guy. Still works good, fits pretty good. I don't have a 9/16 bolt to show you on it. This is probably my oldest snap-on wrench. It's a 3/4 inch. Got this wrench a long time ago. This wrench is old. I mean, it fits pretty good. This is a 3/4. This is a 19mm nut. So it's not exactly right, but it's pretty close. 3/4 and 19 are really close. I forget how many thousandths they're off by. Fits pretty good. I could easily break this loose with this old school snap-on wrench. Shows you how good they hold up. The chrome don't look that great because this thing's been through hell. You can see where it's been pounded on. I'm assuming you can. You see that wrench is taking some abuse. So, I mean, that's one thing. Snap-on, you're going to spend a lot more money, but you have to admit they handle abuse. They do the job. And if you break them, they'll warranty them if you have a good reputation, good relationship with your Snap-on rep. So that's it, guys. That's it, guys. I put together this quick wrench video, unrehearsed. I didn't practice anything or write any scripts. I just want to go over the feel of the wrenches, the thickness and the width, so you know how they should feel, your perception, and why that might be different from brand to brand. So the measuring part of it was just to get an idea of maybe why in our heads it feels a little different from brand to brand. A lot of times the amount of money you spend changes what you think you feel too. But if you buy something really cheap, it's just going to feel cheap. If you buy something, it's like the same thing with cars and everything else we buy. But what I found interesting is how many cool wrenches that Joe and Paul had. I've got a couple of bent up wrenches like that in my stash, but because I don't have a toolbox, they're all buried. And I mean, it would have taken me half an hour, 45 minutes just to find those wrenches. And it's already closing on 8:30 at night here at the shop. I'm filming this after working all day, so I want to keep the content coming for you guys. If you guys have anything you want to see, if you want me to go over something I might have missed in those wrenches, then let me know in the comments. I'll go ahead and do it for you guys. I appreciate you watching. Hope you got something out of this video. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet. Like and subscribe. I'm going to do a lot of videos like this where I'm playing with tools, and sometimes I'll do some reviews, product reviews. I have a Tacoma, I do videos on that. But my biggest thing is videos in the shop, repairs and diagnosis stuff, and trying to improve the industry for mechanics. I think a lot of mechanics feel left out because there's so many people bad-mouthing mechanics on YouTube nowadays to try to build their own channel up. You know, the last mechanic did this, the last mechanic did that. This car's been to 3 shops, but look how smart I am, and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of good mechanics out there, literally thousands, tens of thousands of great mechanics out there, but we tend to focus on a few meatheads that cause trouble for all of us. So these videos I'm making are for the guys that are doing good things and are making people happy, fixing their cars, making a decent living, doing what's right on a daily basis. So you guys aren't alone, man. I appreciate you watching this video. I'm hoping to upload 3 or 4 videos again this weekend. So hopefully it's interesting for you guys, and I appreciate you watching. I appreciate your time. If this video is a little long for your number 2, I hope you don't get a rash or hemorrhoids from waiting too long for the video to end and you fast forward it or something. Thanks, guys. See you in the next video.